Hey, what's up, Illumineers? Nerdstrom here, and I'm here to announce the number 5 seed for the in the Nerdstrom House Championship. It is Emerald Steel Discard. This is, as I've said in previous videos, this is the elder statesman of Lorcana, at least in the Nordstrom household. It is one of the oldest decks that I have created, and it's stayed pretty true since set 3, even after a little bit of a Bucky mishap that's been going on over the history of Lorcana. It still managed to be very competitive and very fun to play. So here is the deck profile for the Emerald Steel Discard package. We start with 6 1-drops only. You've got 4 Diablo, Maleficent Spy. It's a 1-drop inkable, a strength of 1, willpower of 2, quest for 1, and when you play this character, you may look at each opponent's hand. Good way to kind of get an idea what the opposition has in its initial hand when you first try it out. And then the other 2 1-drops are the Hidden Cove. 1-drop, it's a location. It's a cost of 1 to get a character into the location, has a willpower of 6. And characters get +1 strength and +1 willpower while here. So that is just all for the 1-drops. Out of I do believe out of all of the collection, that is the smallest amount of 1-drops that I usually carry as part of my decks. Now for the 2-drops, Ursula Deceiver. Ink cost of 2. It's inkable. Strength of 1, willpower of 3, quest for 1. And when you play this character, a chosen opponent reveals their hand and discards a song card of your choice. Great way to kind of get deleters off the board right off the bat. Definitely a pain in the butt if you're playing Steel Song. Why am I keeping it on there? All right. Then I also have 4 morphs. Space Goo. This is 2 ink, inkable, ink cost of 2, it's inkable, strength of 2, willpower of 1, quest for 1, and when you may play any character with shift on this character as if this character had any name. When you see the other cards that are in my disposal, you'll understand why that deck, this card is here. It's a pretty solid card. Not necessarily like in its initial thing, but it's about what comes after the fact. It's like Magikarp. It's kind of useless when you first try it out, but then like once you hit level 20, you know, all hell breaks loose and Gyarados shows up. All right. I do also use 2 Go-Go Tamagos. The Darting Dynamo. It's 2 cost inkable, strength of 2, willpower of 2. It's evasive. Quest for 1, and when you play this character, you may pay 2 strength to gain lore equal to the damage on chosen opposing character. Do have a couple of damagers on there too, just to kind of get a little bit on there, but the most important thing is to be able to trigger Go-Go Tamago and use it to the best of its ability. I also do use 2 Honey Lemons. It's a 2 cost inkable, strength of 1, willpower of 1. When you play this character, you may pay 2 ink to have each opponent choose and discard a card. It also does quest for 2. Really solid thing. As long if it stays on the board, it can still quest for 2, which is really nice to have as lore gain, because the whole point of the game is to win the game, and you can only do that by gaining lore. But it does also give me another discard ability at the same time too. Speaking of discard, I use 4 Sudden Chills. Let's go ahead and put that shiny one out in front. Strength, it's a 2 cost inkable. It's an action and a song. And each opponent chooses and discard a card. Simple, straightforward. I don't call it Emerald Steel Discard for nothing, and this is one of the core cards that allows me to do that. And then lastly, for the 2-drops, I use 2 Babooms. You never know when you need to damage something. It's a 2 cost inkable action. It deals 2 damage to chosen characters or locations. Locations can be very strong, and sometimes you just need to whittle that damage away. But most importantly, if you can get a character on there too, you can do whatever you can to trigger Go-Go Tamago's ability and use it to the best of your ability later in the game. For my 3 drops, I use 4 Diablo Devoted Heralds. It is to especially use if I can discard an action card and use it on top of a 1-cost Diablo. I can use that to shift it on there. You could do that on turn 1 if you really want to. You can also use it on turn 2 or turn 3 or whenever. As long as you got a discard, you should be all good to go. It's a 3-cost, uninkable, strength of 2, willpower 2. It is evasive, it quests for 1, and during each opponent's turn, whenever they draw a card while the character is exerted, you may also draw a card. Really great draw engine to have, especially early in the game. I use 4 Prince Johns. It's a 3-cost, uninkable, strength of 1, willpower of 2. It has ward, which means that opponents can't choose this character except to challenge. It quests for 2, and whenever your opponent discards 1 or more cards, you may draw a card for each card discarded. Remember how I said discard is kind of the engine? This is the reason why I also use it as the engine. It allows me to draw more cards whenever Prince John is here. So if somebody tries to hit me with a whole new world, not only will I be able to gain 7 cards from that card, if I want to, I can add 7 more and have 14 cards in my hand as a result of that. I use 3 Ursula, Deceiver of Alls. The 3-cost inkable. It is a strength of 2, willpower of 3. Quest for 1. And whenever this character sings a song, you may play that song again from your discard for free and then put it on the bottom of your deck. So say, for example, if I was to play something like Let the Storm Rage On, you're going to see that in a second, don't worry. It deals 2 damage to chosen character, you draw a card. So I could deal 2 damage to one character, or I could do 2, and then after that, I can deal 2 damage to the same character, or I can do it to a different character that's on the board, draw a card, I get 2 cards, I deal 4 damage to either 1 or 2 different characters, and then at the end, this card not only goes from it doesn't go to the discard, it actually goes to the bottom of the deck. So if for some reason I go to the bottom of the deck, I'll be able to have that card somewhere near the end. Although I'm pretty sure by the time I draw my last card, the game's already over and I would have lost. All right. I use 4 Pete's, 3-cost, inkable, strength 3, willpower 3. Quest for 1. When you play this character, opponents can't play actions until the start of your next turn. The key to a good steel player is knowing when to Pete. It is very important that you know when to Pete, because if you Pete at the right time, it can mean another turn of survival for your characters to either gain some lore or do a little bit more damage to your opponent. But a poorly placed Pete can also be very very tough to deal with. Can be like a very tough to deal with on your end, because if you Pete at the right time at the wrong time, you kind of waste it. And then if you don't have any other Petes at your disposal, some guys can run roughshod. So again, the key to a good steel deck is making sure you know when to Pete. I use 4 Let the Storm Rage On. I already discussed this card. 3-cost inkable. It's an action and a song. You deal 2 damage to a chosen character and draw a card. Really great draw engine as well. And helps deal 2 damage to chosen characters. So usually little small weak characters don't really have a chance to fight against these ones. It's really hard to kind of deal with them. But they're really solid. And most important, but I feel like what's more important is the ability to draw a card and hopefully do something else either that during that same turn or during the next turn. Lastly, I use 3 Hypnotizes. Each opponent, it's a 3-cost inkable action. Each opponent chooses and discards a card, and then you draw a card. So that is it for the 3 drops. For the 4 drops, I only use 1, and it is the Muses, the Proclaimers of Heroes. It's a 4-cost inkable, strength of 2, willpower 4, quest for 1. It's got ward, and then whenever you play a song, you may return a chosen character with 2 strength or less to their player's hand. That does mean you can do your opponents. You can also do your own. So say like if there's Ursula on the field, and let's say like your opponent doesn't really have a whole bunch of like 2-string characters, you can always bring back the Ursula, and if you have enough ink, you can just put down Ursula again, and then they're going to have to discard another song at the same time too if they've got one in their hand. So it's a pretty solid thing, but it's also an incredible board wipe if you can time it correctly, because if you have the muses on the board and you start singing with all your other characters, it allows the muses to go ahead and send other little cheap characters back to the hand at the same time too. So yes, it might be the 1/4, but in a lot of cases that might be all I need. Now for the 5 drops, I have 3 Beasts Tragic Heroes, a 5-drop, inkable, strength of 3, willpower 5, quest for 2. It's a shift 3 character, so you can put that on top of your morph if you want to. At the start of your turn, if this character has no damage, you draw a card. Otherwise, he gets +4 strength this turn. And I play 3 Beast Tragic Heroes. It is not by choice. I just do it because I only have 3 at my disposal. If I had the ability to have 4, I would. I think Beast is a great card. I also use 2 Grab Your Swords. It's an action song. It's a 5-cost uninkable, and you deal 2 damage to each opposing character. It is another potential board wipe if you're playing against characters that are rather weak in terms of their willpower, and just kind of gets things off really quickly. And, I should just be leaving this, shouldn't I? And then lastly, I use 3 We Don't Talk About Brunos. It's a 5-cost uninkable. It's an action song. You return a chosen character to their player's hand, then that player discards that card at random. If the opponent doesn't have any cards in hand, it just means it's an automatic discard for that card. It also does mean it's a Prince John trigger, so because they are discarding a card, you can gain a card as a result of that. So We Don't Talk About Bruno is a pretty solid card. It's not necessarily the one that I usually try to do as part of like a curve, but it's good to know that it's there. And then lastly, I only have 2 6-drops, but it is 6-drop Tinkerbell Giant Fairy. It's a 6-drop, 6-cost, inkable, strength of 4, willpower 5, quest for 4. It's a shift 4, shift cost of 4, and when you play this character, deal 1 damage to each opposing character. And during your turn, whenever this character banishes another character in a challenge, I can also deal 2 damage to a chosen opposing character. So say if, let's say that there's a Lilo that's ready, the 1/1 quest for 2, you could challenge another character that's already exerted, take it out and banish it, and then that damage will also bounce 2 damage off onto another chosen character, whether it's ready or not. So it could also be that Lilo that would have quested during that next turn, but because you have the strength to the ability to get rid of the thing, you can, and it won't quest, and it'll just go back to it'll just go down into your discard pile. So Tinkerbell is a really strong. It's really hard to get rid of, as well. And yes, it's a pretty stubborn card, but there's a reason why it's been around since the first chapter. It is a really solid card to put damage onto characters, which is the whole point of steel decks. So there you have it. That is the number 5 seed in the Nerdstrom House Championship Emerald Steel Discard. Until next time, my name is Nerdstrom, and let's get nerdy.